Today's video is a detailed review and analysis of the movie Return to Silent Hill, starring Jeremy Irvine. This is not a full movie and not a movie screening. In this video, we will break down the complete story of the film and explain how the plot develops from start to end. We will talk about the main cast and supporting cast, their roles, and their performances. We will also cover the movie's production, development process, and the creative choices behind it. You will learn where the story was inspired from, who wrote it, and what the original idea and purpose were. Along with the creative side, we will analyze the movie's budget, box office performance, and overall business results. Every important element of the film is explained and reviewed from a viewer's perspective. So let's begin and take a closer look at Return to Silent Hill. Fog does not arrive gently in Silent Hill. It crawls like guilt, thick, suffocating, refusing to explain itself. This story begins long before the letter. It begins with a mistake that felt like destiny. James Sunderland meets Mary by accident. A bus missed, a pause created, a choice quietly rewritten. She stands there, unsure, irritated, strangely calm. James offers a ride, without understanding the cost. Silent Hill welcomes them, with trees and distance. A town that listens more than it speaks. Love grows there, but something watches quietly. The town never forgets who enters willingly. Time fractures their happiness slowly. Mary carries secrets heavier than her smiles. James senses something wrong, but never asks. Silence becomes their shared language. Then everything ends without closure. James leaves, and the town keeps Mary. Years pass, and James becomes hollow. Alcohol fills the spaces where truth should live. A therapist listens, but James avoids himself. Healing feels impossible without answers. Then the letter arrives. Mary's handwriting calls him back home. No explanation, no reason, just need. Silent Hill summons its lost soul again. James returns, driven by guilt, not hope. The road feels longer than memory. Fog consumes the town completely. Ash falls, like the town is still burning. Buildings stand abandoned, frozen in regret. Silent Hill feels sick, like a dying thought. Angela appears suddenly, broken and distant. She speaks like someone already lost. A creature attacks without warning. James runs, fear rewriting reality. The town shifts when he blinks. Walls rot, metal screams. Floors bleed rust. Woodside apartments rise like a memory trap. This was once home, now punishment. Inside waits Eddie, violent and confused. Laura watches with unsettling calm. Pyramid Head emerges from shadows. Judgment made flesh, dragging consequences. James survives by running, never confronting. That has always been his weakness. He wakes back in calmer streets. Silent Hill resets like it enjoys confusion. Angela and Laura appear again. Laura knows Mary, or claims she does. Then Maria appears. She looks like Mary, but wrong. Same face, different soul. She walks beside James, tempting denial. Memories surface during the walk. Occult, rituals, poison, obedience. Mary was never innocent. James was never brave. Brookhaven Hospital waits patiently. Truth always hides in hospitals. An audio tape reveals poison. Mary was dying long before leaving. The hospital transforms violently. Nurses move like broken thoughts. Maria is attacked, helpless, and screaming. James abandons her to survive. Laura lures James deeper. The monster reveals Mary's twisted form. Suddenly, reality snaps brutally. James wakes under clinical lights. The therapist explains everything calmly. Mary is dead. Grief caused delusion. Brookhaven returns to nightmare form. James finally understands Maria's purpose. Paintings of Mary surround him. Obsessive love becomes prison. Pyramid Head kills Maria. James sees himself beneath the mask. Lakeview Hotel waits at the end. Memory becomes unavoidable here. Laura explains the truth gently. They are fragments of Mary's personality. Angela appears consumed by fire. Her pain mirrors James's cowardice. On the rooftop, truth collapses him. James remembers the mercy killing. Mary was suffering endlessly. James chose silence over courage. The moth monster becomes Mary again. Forgiveness hangs unspoken between them. James drives into the lake. Death seems like justice. But time loops unexpectedly. The first meeting repeats. This time, James chooses differently. He drives away from Silent Hill. The town watches silently. It waits for the next broken soul. Silent Hill does not end when you leave it. It rewrites itself inside the mind. James drives away, but memory stays parked behind his eyes. The road feels lighter, yet heavier somehow. What he escaped was not the town. It was the version of himself shaped by fear. The fog thins, but it never disappears completely. It becomes thought instead of weather. James remembers moments he once avoided, small gestures that carried warnings. Mary laughing, then suddenly distant. Her eyes asking questions he refused to answer. The cult did not start the decay. It only gave it language. Silent Hill feeds on unresolved love, on people who confuse guilt for devotion. James thought leaving meant survival. But leaving only delayed the reckoning. Every place afterward feels temporary. Nothing holds weight without her presence. He paints again, but nothing forms. Canvas stays blank, like confession denied. Sleep offers no rest. Dreams replay alternate endings endlessly. Sometimes Mary forgives him. Sometimes she watches silently. The therapist becomes a witness, not a healer. Truth resists being spoken aloud. James understands now what Maria represented. Desire without consequence. Memory without responsibility. She was comfort shaped like denial. A fantasy built to avoid grief. Pyramid Head was never punishment alone. It was direction, forcing movement forward. Silent Hill created monsters only when James refused to look inward. Fear needed form to be faced. Angela's suffering mirrored his own silence. Different pain, same abandonment. Laura represented innocence, untouched by guilt. The version of love James never protected. The hotel remains the final symbol. A place where memories refuse distortion. James realizes forgiveness is not escape. It is acceptance without erasure. Driving away does not erase the past. It honors it by choosing differently. Silent Hill allows departure only after truth is acknowledged. Not forgiven, just recognized. The town remains alive somewhere, waiting for unresolved hearts. James carries Mary differently now. Not as obsession, but as responsibility. Her death is no longer mystery. It is consequence acknowledged fully. He understands mercy does not erase pain. It only ends suffering when nothing else can. The loop breaks because choice replaces fear, not because redemption was earned. Silent Hill teaches cruel lessons gently. It never chases, it invites. James will never forget the fog, but it will no longer guide him. The monsters fade without purpose. Judgment dissolves when confession stands firm. Some souls never leave Silent Hill. Others learn how. James walks forward finally awake. Not healed, but honest. The town closes its eyes behind him, satisfied, not defeated. The fog feels heavier now, pressing against James like a living memory. Every step forward sounds louder, as if Silent Hill is listening closely. The town no longer hides. It invites him deeper into its breathing wounds. James walks streets that feel familiar, yet cruelly rearranged by guilt. Buildings lean inward. Corridors stretch longer than logic allows. Reality bends softly, the way a nightmare pretends to be calm. Inside Woodside apartments, silence hums with something watching. Walls sweat with age, paint peeling like dead skin. Each room feels staged, waiting for James to remember something painful. He finds Eddie, a man shaped by violence and fear. Eddie's laughter cracks, hiding rage beneath childish defiance. James senses a mirror forming, though he refuses to look directly. Laura appears without warning, playful and disturbingly calm. She runs through danger untouched, as if the town protects her. James follows, confused by her innocence, inside such rot. A metal scrape echoes, slow and deliberate, dragging across floors. Pyramid Head emerges, not chasing, simply existing with judgment. Its presence presses James into breathless terror without moving an inch. Eddie flees, panic swallowing him whole in seconds. James stands frozen, staring at punishment given physical shape. Pyramid Head disappears, leaving dread behind like a signature. The world resets without explanation, fog replacing rusted nightmares. Angela appears again, distant and fragmented by unseen pain. Her words drift, heavy with things James cannot yet understand. Maria arrives, wearing Mary's face but speaking with softer desire. She walks close, touching reality too warmly to be trusted. James clings to her presence, needing comfort more than truth. As they move, memories leak into the present, like poison. Fragments of Mary's surface, cult whispers, ritual shadows, silent suffering. James remembers leaving, choosing escape over confrontation. Brookhaven Hospital rises like a monument to decay. Inside, reality peels open, revealing something screaming beneath. Maria grows uneasy, sensing her borrowed time slipping away. An audio tape plays, confirming Mary's slow poisoning. The truth strikes quietly, hurting worse than violence. James realizes his love was built on denial. Nurses appear, movements sharp, faces emptied of humanity. They attack Maria, tearing her illusion apart. James runs, abandoning her, shame following closely behind. Laura leads James deeper, playful yet cruel in timing. She locks him inside a room filled with transformation. Mary returns, twisted into something monstrous and winged. The moth creature pulses with grief and accusation. James collapses under its weight, unable to fight. Reality snaps suddenly, throwing him into sterile brightness. A hospital bed replaces rusted horror. The therapist explains gently, too gently, about Mary's death. James listens, shattered by clarity he avoided for years. Brookhaven returns, erasing comfort like it never existed. James accepts Maria was never real, only longing wearing a face. He steps into a gallery filled with painted versions of Mary. Each portrait shows a different memory, none forgiving. James speaks aloud, releasing Maria from his need. Pyramid Head appears, finishing punishment without mercy. Under the helmet, James sees himself reflected briefly. Guilt stands revealed, no longer disguised. The execution feels earned, not shocking. James awakens at Lakeview Hotel, memories flooding warmly. This place once held laughter, hope, fragile dreams. Now it waits for confession instead of reunion. Laura explains softly, removing illusions piece by piece. Angela, Maria, even Laura, were reflections of Mary's soul. James listens, finally ready to accept responsibility. Angela's vision appears, swallowed by a monstrous fatherly shape. Her pain burns quickly, then vanishes. James understands suffering never needed witnesses to be real. On the rooftop, memory strikes like cold rain. James recalls returning months earlier, finding Mary dying. Her illness dragged endlessly, mercy blurring into sin. He remembers smothering her, ending pain and beginning damnation. Tears fall freely, unguarded, finally honest. The moth returns, transforming gently back into Mary. James apologizes without defense, without excuses. Mary listens silently, forgiveness unreadable. Her body becomes real, heavy with consequence. James places her into the car with care. He drives toward the lake, fog swallowing the road. The decision feels calm, almost peaceful. Water rushes upward, darkness closing softly. Time folds backward instead of ending. James awakens at the moment of first meeting Mary. The bus waits, destiny holding its breath. James chooses differently, driving away from Silent Hill. The town fades, denied another sacrifice. Time moves differently after James chooses another path. The fog behind him fading silently while the road stretches forward, uncertain, but finally real. Mary sits beside him, unaware of the futures that almost existed. Her laughter light, untouched by sickness, secrecy, and the weight of hidden fears. James listens carefully, afraid of missing even one breath, as if each exhale could carry away the fragile thread of their present moment. The town disappears in the rear mirror, like unfinished business left behind. Fog dissolving into ordinary morning mist, and nothing follows him this time. Life does not suddenly become perfect. Work remains tiring, money remains tight, yet the guilt that once haunted him no longer owns his sleep. James paints again, slowly, patiently, honestly, each canvas holding small pieces of truth. No monsters, no lies, only memory, color, and quiet reflection. Mary notices the change before he does, seeing steadier hands, calmer eyes, love growing stronger between them, without the shadows of hidden secrets. Sometimes James still dreams of rusted hallways. Sometimes he hears metal dragging in silence. But the dreams lose their terrifying power over him now. He learns that facing pain early saves lives later. While avoidance only feeds nightmares, and honesty finally starves the shadows that once haunted him. James awakens outside the hospital. The foggy streets of Silent Hill whisper eerie warnings continuously. Laura approaches him cautiously, explaining that Mary, Maria, and Angela are only figments of his imagination. James hesitates, unsure whether to trust Laura, while shadows twist and moan along the abandoned alleyways. The broken buildings seem alive, shifting subtly, creating illusions of movement, shapes, and faces in darkness. He follows Laura down the crumbling street, memories of Mary flooding back with intense, conflicting emotions. Each corner reveals strange visions. The town simultaneously decayed and horrifyingly pristine, blending reality and nightmare. Inside the Lakeview Hotel, James pauses at the creaking stairwell, hearing distant echoes of ghostly footsteps. Laura gestures silently, guiding him toward the rooftop, her expression both fearful and strangely familiar to him. The wind howls through broken windows, carrying whispers of Mary's voice, beckoning him to confront the past. Pyramid Head's shadow lurks momentarily behind a doorway, reminding James of past terror and guilt accumulated. James recalls his final moments with Mary, guilt piercing him like icy shards, burning through memory vividly. He feels her presence, the moth-like creature that haunted his dreams looming, merging nightmare and reality. At the rooftop's edge, James sees fragmented visions of Silent Hill, overlapping past and present timelines eerily. The city stretches below, twisted and corrupted, reflecting his inner turmoil, the consequences of obsession and grief. Laura watches silently, whispering cryptic guidance about confronting truth, but her form flickers, unreal, ephemeral. He takes a deep breath, realizing the choice to forgive himself or surrender to madness lies imminent. James envisions Mary, sick and frail, recalling mercy and love, her body fading in spectral sunlight slowly. The moth-like figure transforms back into Mary's form, eyes filled with both accusation and forgiveness simultaneously. He reaches out, trembling, tears streaming, as memories of their first meeting flicker like fragile candle flames. Time seems to pause. Wind stills, the city around him suspended between reality and nightmare's unstable boundary. James embraces Mary, not physically but mentally, acknowledging past mistakes, accepting his role in her death. Laura's voice whispers encouragement, fading as the rooftop dissolves into mist. Memories intertwining with spectral cityscape. Mary smiles faintly, the fog lifting subtly around her, revealing glimpses of sunlight piercing Silent Hill's gloom. James feels relief, mixed with sorrow, the haunting weight of guilt starting to loosen, a fragile peace forming. Suddenly, he awakens again at the lake's edge, the car from his first encounter with Mary waiting. This time he chooses differently, driving away from Silent Hill, holding Mary's hand, reality finally converging with choice. The town disappears behind them gradually, mist swirling, the past unresolved yet transformed into a lesson for living. James exhales slowly, heart pounding, as the car moves towards sunlight, leaving darkness, nightmares, and guilt behind forever. The world feels lighter, the town's horrors fading like distant echoes. James finally feels a cautious freedom. Mary laughs softly, a sound pure and human, grounding James as he drives into the unknown horizon peacefully. James and Mary drive silently through misty hills, the sunlight gradually piercing through lingering fog around them. Memories of Silent Hill haunt him briefly, but he focuses on the road, embracing newfound determination carefully. He glances at Mary, her expression soft but cautious, sensing the weight of unspoken shared trauma. The car passes abandoned buildings and twisted trees, shadows fading as reality slowly reclaims its rightful shape. Mary reaches out, touching James' hand, offering reassurance. Their connection strengthens with each cautious mile forward. James feels hope blossom cautiously, remembering lessons from nightmares, understanding that past cannot control present choices. The road curves sharply, revealing a small town ahead, seemingly untouched by horrors, peaceful and quiet. James slows, observing the simple lives of townsfolk, children playing, unaware of his own haunted past, nearby. He remembers Laura's words about confronting truth, realizing forgiveness begins internally, not dependent on external validation. Mary smiles faintly, encouraging him to release guilt, trust life, and embrace moments as they appear naturally. James parks the car near a small riverside, water reflecting sunlight, offering serenity after years of torment. He steps out, stretching cautiously, inhaling fresh air, feeling emotions long suppressed, slowly return to awareness. The river flows steadily, symbolizing time and life, continuing despite pain, reminding James of hope's persistence. Mary walks beside him, silent but supportive, their connection deepening beyond fear, trauma, and past illusions. James recalls Pyramid Head, nightmares, and ghostly visions, but they feel distant, powerless against his inner growth. He kneels by the water, touching its surface, memories of Silent Hill dissolving like ripples fading gently downstream. Mary joins him, placing her hand on his shoulder, grounding him, connecting past experiences with present awareness. James closes his eyes, feeling gratitude for survival, for choice, and for the opportunity to redefine life's course. A gentle breeze carries the scent of pine and earth, whispering reminders that the world continues patiently around him. They sit by the riverbank, speaking softly about the past, acknowledging pain without letting it dominate future decisions. James finally allows tears to fall, cathartic release of grief, guilt, and remorse accumulated over years painfully endured. Mary comforts him silently, the simplicity of their shared presence grounding both in reality rather than haunting illusions. He observes the town across the river, children laughing, elders conversing. Life continues unburdened by Silent Hill's shadow. James realizes he can create new memories, free from supernatural torment, trauma, and obsessive grief about Mary's past. Mary encourages James to take small steps, trust the journey, and live fully in the present, without fear lingering. He nods slowly, determined to rebuild life, embracing freedom and peace, while honoring memory without succumbing to despair. The sun climbs higher, casting warmth, illuminating a path forward, symbolizing clarity, growth, and resilience emerging slowly. James holds Mary's hand, taking the first step toward a hopeful future, leaving the horrors behind definitively. The river sparkles in golden light, reflecting both sun and the promise of renewal, washing away lingering darkness. Together, they walk toward the town, leaving Silent Hill's nightmare as a memory, a lesson in courage gained. James breathes deeply, heart steady, acknowledging past mistakes without shame. Empowered to live consciously, free from fear. Mary smiles warmly, a human presence anchoring him, providing support and love, balancing strength and vulnerability equally. As they enter the town, subtle sounds of life, laughter, and conversation welcome them, marking new beginnings quietly. James glances back once. Silent Hill now distant, its horrors contained in memory, unable to control future experiences. James and Mary continue walking through the town, sunlight warming their faces, each step a small victory. They notice shops reopening, familiar faces waving, a subtle reminder that life carries on beyond previous nightmares. Children run past, laughing, their innocence contrasting sharply with James' memories of Silent Hill's horrors and darkness. Mary points to a bakery, suggesting they stop for a moment, enjoying normality after years of fear. Inside, the scent of fresh bread fills the air, grounding them, easing tension accumulated over countless anxious nights. James smiles faintly, realizing simple pleasures can heal, providing peace where terror once dominated every thought. They sit near a window, sunlight streaming in, observing townsfolk, chatting, small dogs playing near shopfronts happily. Mary orders coffee, gentle warmth in her hands, mirroring the slow rekindling of hope within James' chest. James reflects on his journey, acknowledging mistakes and obsessions, without letting guilt dictate every fleeting thought now. Mary places her hand on his, silent reassurance that together they can redefine life, free from past shadows. A bell chimes softly as the door opens, bringing in a breeze carrying scents of pine and fresh earth. James breathes deeply, savoring calm. Understanding growth requires patience and willingness to release lingering trauma fully. He notices Laura in the distance, walking calmly, appearing healthy, a sign that imagined fears now dissolve naturally. Mary observes him, smiling quietly, grateful that James embraces reality instead of dwelling on imagined horrors haunting endlessly. Outside, the sun casts long shadows, highlighting the town's charm, signaling a new chapter and brighter days ahead. James and Mary step out, walking slowly along cobblestone streets, hearts lighter, ready to face life openly. They pass the riverside where they earlier stopped, reminding James that time heals when embraced consciously. Mary squeezes his hand, indicating shared strength and partnership, reinforcing trust, connection, and renewed commitment to each other. The townsfolk glance curiously, friendly smiles meeting their gaze, welcoming presence, signaling community support for quiet recovery. James feels a sense of belonging, slowly forming, replacing isolation and fear with hope, acceptance, and courage anew. He recalls Pyramid Head, the moth-like Mary, and Silent Hill's nightmares. Now feeling powerless against his strengthened inner resolve, Mary whispers encouragement, blending warmth and reassurance, reminding him that the past exists only to teach, not control. They pass an old theater, marquee faded but intact, memories of laughter and joy, reminding James of simpler, happier times. James glances inside, imagining performances, life beyond fear, and possibilities untainted by horror, tragedy, or obsessive grief lingering. Mary notices a park with children playing and suggests they rest there, soaking in tranquility, moments untainted by terror. James sits on a bench, watching sunlight glint off leaves, allowing reflection without judgment, letting serenity settle deeply. James closes his eyes briefly, savoring this peace, knowing Silent Hill cannot touch him unless he permits it. Mary leans on his shoulder, sharing quiet comfort, grounding him, reinforcing that human connection heals more effectively than isolation. James nods slowly, absorbing lessons from his journey, understanding resilience, forgiveness, and embracing life fully without hesitation. They rise together, moving toward town center, observing daily life continue, ordinary beauty now appreciated more fully than ever. James feels liberation, past horrors transformed into lessons rather than chains, allowing authentic life to flow unobstructed naturally. Sunlight intensifies, glinting off river and cobblestones, illuminating smiles and laughter, a metaphor for hope, reclaiming lost days. James glances at Mary, smiles reciprocated, realizing mutual support, love, and patience can rebuild fractured lives completely. The evening light begins to soften, painting the sky in gentle shades of orange and lavender above Silent Hill. James notices how peaceful everything feels, like the town itself is finally breathing again after years of suffering. Mary walks beside him slowly, matching his pace, understanding that healing cannot be rushed or forced. Each step feels deliberate, meaningful, as if they are rebuilding their lives one moment at a time. They stop near an old bridge, watching water flow quietly beneath, reflecting fading sunlight, like scattered memories. James realizes time moves forward regardless of pain, carrying sorrow away if people allow themselves to release it. Mary rests her arms on the railing, gazing thoughtfully at the current, her expression calm and hopeful. She speaks softly about dreams of traveling, living freely, and creating memories untouched by fear. James listens carefully, feeling inspired by her vision, imagining a future not defined by guilt or obsession. For the first time, he truly believes he deserves happiness without punishment or self-destruction. A train horn echoes faintly in the distance, reminding James of earlier confusion and emotional turmoil. Now, the sound feels neutral, harmless, no longer linked to suffering or haunting visions. They continue walking, passing closed shops and glowing street lamps that slowly awaken for nighttime. Warm yellow light replaces daylight, symbolizing transition from darkness into stability and comfort. James remembers nights spent wandering in terror, guided only by desperation and distorted hope. Those memories feel distant now, like scenes from someone else's broken life. Mary senses his reflection and gently asks what he is thinking about. He admits his fear of losing peace again, of returning to emotional chaos. Mary reassures him that fear is natural, but strength lies in continuing despite uncertainty. Her voice carries sincerity, grounding James in present reality rather than imagined disasters. They arrive near the lakeside hotel, once filled with sorrow and unresolved guilt. James hesitates briefly, memories resurfacing, but chooses not to turn away this time. Instead, he faces the building calmly, acknowledging its role in his past, without surrendering power. Mary supports him silently, allowing him space to confront lingering emotional scars. Together, they walked past the entrance, refusing to let old pain define their direction. James feels proud of this decision, recognizing growth within himself. The moon rises slowly, reflecting on the lake's surface, like quiet witnesses to transformation. James watches the reflection, thinking about how life mirrors inner struggles and healing. They sit near the water, enjoying silence, understanding that words are sometimes unnecessary. Shared stillness becomes a language of trust and emotional safety. James speaks about forgiving himself for past mistakes and misguided choices. Mary listens attentively, never interrupting, offering acceptance without judgment. He admits his obsession blinded him, trapping him inside illusions and self-punishment. Acknowledging this truth feels liberating, like removing heavy chains from his spirit. Mary tells him forgiveness begins when people choose compassion toward themselves. Her words resonate deeply, reshaping James's perception of responsibility and redemption. A gentle breeze ripples the lake, creating soft waves that shimmer under moonlight. James feels harmony between environment and emotions. Rare but profoundly comforting. They stand again, preparing to leave, knowing rest awaits after long emotional journeys. Their steps are slower now, deliberate, filled with quiet confidence. James realizes Silent Hill no longer controls his identity or future. It remains a chapter, not the entire story of his existence. Mary smiles, sensing his emotional clarity, feeling grateful for shared resilience. Together, they walk toward distant lights, symbols of ongoing life and opportunity. James silently promises himself to cherish peace and protect mental stability. He understands vigilance and self-awareness are essential for lasting recovery. As they reach their destination, James looks back once more at the town. There is no fear this time, only acceptance and closure. He turns forward again, holding Mary's hand firmly, ready for tomorrow. Hope now guides him, replacing confusion, regret, and emotional imprisonment. James stumbled through the thick fog, his eyes straining to see the twisted Silent Hill streets. Memories of Mary flooded his mind, reminding him of love, loss, and moments he cherished dearly. He reached the woodside apartment building, its structure warped and decayed, a reflection of his mind. Inside, echoes of his past whispered through the hallways, haunting him with each step and creak. Eddie emerged suddenly, eyes wild, screaming threats, as James tried to calm him with trembling hands. Laura clutched a small doll, her innocence contrasting sharply with the terror around her. Fragile yet brave. The walls began to warp, stretching unnaturally, bending reality into shapes James could scarcely comprehend fully. A distant scream echoed through the hall, forcing James to run further into the apartment's twisted corridors. He found Maria waiting, her resemblance to Mary striking, causing his heart to ache painfully inside. Maria whispered promises, guiding him toward Brookhaven Hospital, hope mingling with fear in James's fractured mind. Along the route, memories of the cult surfaced, revealing Mary's entanglement with dark forces he hated. James shivered, remembering the rituals, the drugs, the manipulation, and the horror that followed afterward. Pyramid Head appeared briefly, a looming shadow, reminding James that danger always lurked just around corners. The hospital loomed ahead, its architecture shifting into monstrous forms, walls bleeding shadows of past tragedies. James's hands shook as he entered, each step echoing like a drum of impending doom. Inside the main lobby, flickering lights revealed shadows of nurses, twisting unnaturally, crawling along cracked floors. A tape recorder lay on the counter, playing a message from Mary, her voice eerily distorted. He pressed play, and Mary's words confirmed the poisoning, the cult's interference, the betrayal and fear within. James's stomach churned. Nausea rose as he remembered failing to protect Mary from her impending death. Maria guided him through corridors, each turn revealing grotesque mutations of familiar hospital rooms and equipment. Monstrous nurses lunged suddenly, their limbs elongated, jaws unhinged, forcing James to dodge and run frantically. Laura appeared silently, eyes wide, pointing to a staircase that seemed to lead somewhere unknown, possibly safety. Ascending, James felt the building breathing, walls pulsing as though the hospital itself was alive somehow. Memories of Mary flashed violently, overlaying the hallucinations, blending reality with his guilt and distorted recollections. He reached the top floor, doors sealed with rusted locks, some doors pulsating as if bleeding shadows. A shadowy figure approached, moving with jerky, unnatural motions. It resembled Eddie, yet distorted and terrifying. James dodged, ducking behind a blood-stained gurney, trying to catch his breath and steady his shaking hands. Maria urged him forward, her hand guiding his trembling arm, whispering that the truth awaited just ahead. The walls around them warped further, staircases twisted impossibly, like the building defied physics entirely in nightmare. James recalled the cult's rituals, Mary's father's manipulations, and their desperate, dangerous attempts to break free. A monstrous figure resembling Mary's father appeared, eyes glowing red, emanating a threat both real and imagined. Laura screamed as shadows converged, forcing James to grab her and run through a hall that elongated endlessly. Maria faltered momentarily, injured by unseen forces, but quickly recovered, leading James through a door that opened. They found themselves in a room filled with paintings of Mary, dozens of images staring accusingly at James. Each painting seemed alive, whispering Mary's voice, reminding him of promises broken, of failures and lost chances. Suddenly, the room changed, walls melting into darkness, and a giant moth-like creature of Mary appeared. James froze, fear paralyzing him, but he remembered their love, their shared memories, and called out softly. The creature shifted, eyes glowing, moving closer. James's heart pounded, knowing this was his ultimate test. Maria tried to intervene, but James realized she was a projection, a doppelganger created by his mind. The moth Mary circled him, wings flapping, each beat echoing with guilt, sorrow, and haunting reminders past. He reached out, speaking Mary's name, apologizing for failures, acknowledging her suffering, and his own desperation within. The creature paused, wings folding slightly, as if understanding the depth of his remorse and regret fully. Suddenly, everything snapped. James woke in a hospital room, fluorescent lights, harsh, reality pressing down painfully. The psychologist explained, voice calm yet firm, that Mary had died months ago. Delusions had haunted him. James struggled to accept, feeling the weight of his obsession, guilt, and mental deterioration crushing him. Brookhaven Hospital's nightmare had been his mind's construction, combining memory, loss, and distorted reality in terrifying ways. He realized Maria, Laura, Angela, had been fragments of Mary's personality, echoes of love and grief entwined. Pyramid Head's image remained in his mind, a reflection of self-punishment, anger, and unresolved sorrow deep within. James left the hospital, stepping outside into foggy Silent Hill. The town quiet, deathly, yet strangely familiar. He walked toward Lakeview Hotel, memories of laughter, love, and lost moments flooding his heart painfully. Laura appeared briefly, whispering encouragement, guiding him toward understanding, and facing his grief without collapsing under guilt. The hotel loomed, corridors echoing past encounters. But now James felt strength, a purpose to move forward. He ascended to the roof, recalling final memories of mercy killing, love, and the impossibility of saving. Moth Mary appeared briefly again, wings folding, eyes glowing. James whispered apologies, confronting the truth of her death. He carried her body gently, placing her in his car, preparing to drive into the icy lake. As the car descended the pier, the water opened, cold, dark, but James felt peace approaching finally. Suddenly, time shifted, and he found himself in the moment he met Mary. Sunlight bright, inviting. James chose differently, refusing to bring her back to Silent Hill, deciding instead to drive away together. The town receded in the distance, fog lifting, shadows disappearing. A final closure for James's tortured mind. Memories of Silent Hill, the cult, Pyramid Head, and Moth Mary lingered as lessons of love, loss endured. He smiled faintly, holding Mary's hand, hope reborn, realizing the mind's power to create, destroy, and heal. The journey through nightmare, delusion, and self-reflection ended as reality and love merged, bringing peace at last. James drove away from Silent Hill, gripping Mary's hand tightly, sunlight warming their faces after darkness. The road stretched endlessly, memories of fear, nightmare, and guilt slowly fading into distant shadows behind them. He felt the weight of obsession lift slightly, as hope replaced the constant, suffocating fog of grief. Mary looked at him quietly, sensing his relief, her presence grounding him in the fragile reality again. The town behind them dissolved into mist, leaving only memories and lessons learned through horror and loss. James reflected on his journey, understanding how obsession twisted love into torment, suffering, and hallucination repeatedly. He vowed never to return to Silent Hill, fearing the power of his own mind's creations. The car moved steadily, engine humming, as memories of Mary's laughter played softly in James's heart continuously. He recalled their first meeting, the spark of connection, innocence, and trust that had once blossomed naturally. Despite the pain, he felt a sense of accomplishment, having confronted his delusions and faced terrifying hallucinations directly. Mary squeezed his hand, reassuring him that the future could be theirs, free of Silent Hill's grip. James exhaled slowly, releasing tension, finally understanding that letting go could heal both love and past trauma. The landscape shifted gradually, fields opening wide, sunlight glinting on morning dew, birds singing in soft harmony. He slowed the car, absorbing the peace, realizing nature itself reflected recovery.com and the return of life. Memories of Pyramid Head, Moth Mary, and monstrous nurses lingered, but they no longer held power over him entirely. James's mind felt clearer, less fragmented. Guilt still lingered, but he could face reality with Mary beside him. They stopped briefly at a roadside diner, sharing coffee, exchanging smiles, a moment of simple human connection restored. He laughed quietly at a joke Mary told, savoring the normalcy of life after weeks of terror. James reflected on Silent Hill's lessons. Love can endure, but obsession can create prisons inside the mind endlessly. He promised himself to cherish each moment, to protect Mary and avoid repeating the mistakes that haunted his past. The sky turned gold as the sun rose higher, illuminating the road ahead, possibilities stretching infinitely forward. James and Mary spoke of dreams, plans, small desires, rebuilding life together outside the shadows of horror. He thought about forgiveness for himself, for Mary's suffering, and the illusions that had tormented him so completely. Each mile removed them further from Silent Hill's nightmare, yet James remained aware that healing is gradual and fragile. Mary rested her head on his shoulder briefly, a gesture of trust, love, and shared relief enduring. James noticed small details, roadside flowers, distant hills, the scent of pine, anchoring him to reality firmly. He recalled his hallucinations vividly, but now could distinguish them from reality. Understanding the fragility of perception completely, the car passed abandoned towns, remnants of humanity, reminders of Silent Hill's isolation, reinforcing his appreciation of safety. James felt gratitude for surviving, for love, and for the lessons Silent Hill had imposed relentlessly upon him. They reached a small town, deciding to rest, find shelter, food, and reconnect with the simple human world. Walking through the streets, James noticed children playing, dogs barking, ordinary life continuing peacefully despite past horrors surrounding him. He felt grounded, fully present, no longer dominated by visions or guilt, embracing reality with renewed purpose fully. Mary suggested a small cabin near a lake, serene and isolated, perfect for reflection, healing, and rebuilding life. James agreed, imagining mornings by the water, evenings reading together, evenings sharing stories, laughter echoing gently in tranquility. They found the cabin, quaint and welcoming, surrounded by trees, birds, and the soft ripple of the lake. James unpacked their belongings carefully, savoring the act of organizing life, of creating a safe, tangible environment consciously. Mary watched him, smiling, pride and love reflecting in her eyes, an anchor for his emotional recovery. They prepared dinner, simple meals, enjoying each bite, savoring normalcy, each action grounding them further from Silent Hill's horrors. James lit a fireplace, flames dancing, warmth spreading through the cabin, symbolizing renewal, hope, and life's comforting routines. They spoke about the past honestly, fears, memories, pain, guilt, and delusions laid bare in quiet trust. James admitted his mistakes, obsession, and how Silent Hill's horrors had shaped his fragile perception and choices. Mary listened, forgiving, understanding, offering reassurance that love and connection could overcome trauma when nurtured gently. Night fell, stars glimmering through windows, casting gentle light on the cabin, a stark contrast to Silent Hill. James and Mary sat together, hands intertwined, contemplating the fragility of life and the importance of moving forward. He thought of Pyramid Head, Moth Mary, and Laura, understanding they were manifestations, lessons, rather than threats to his future. He realized the human mind can create worlds of terror when grief and guilt remain unresolved completely. Mary whispered softly, reminding James that healing requires patience, presence, and embracing the simple joys life offers. James nodded, acknowledging her wisdom, committing to staying grounded, cherishing love, and rejecting obsession's destructive pull deliberately. The fire crackled, warmth and light reflecting in their eyes, a symbol of life reclaimed, hope restored fully. James stepped outside briefly, inhaling cold night air, stars above, feeling connected to the world and life again. The lake reflected moonlight.com, serene, a perfect metaphor for clarity, peace, and emotional restoration finally achieved. He thought about the road traveled, Silent Hill, delusions, and understood the resilience required to survive trauma fully. Mary joined him, hand in his, silence filled with understanding, healing, and the unspoken bond of shared survival. They returned inside, lights dimmed, fireplace glowing, safe, free from the twisted, haunting memories of Silent Hill completely. James journaled his thoughts, reflections on fear, love, healing, and lessons learned through horror and suffering meticulously. He recognized personal growth, resilience, the fragility of perception, and the power of confronting trauma consciously and directly. Mary read beside him, occasionally commenting, laughing softly, sharing thoughts, reinforcing normalcy, trust, and companionship restored naturally. The night passed peacefully, unbroken by hallucinations or terror, a triumph over the horrors that had consumed him. James slept deeply, body and mind recovering. His subconscious free from Silent Hill's nightmares, guilt lifted slightly. Morning brought sunlight, birdsong, wind through trees, a reminder that life continues, hope and love prevailing consistently. They walked to the lake, hand in hand, reflecting on their journey, Silent Hill, and personal growth accomplished. James recognized the need to cherish present moments, to nurture love, and embrace life's ordinary pleasures consciously. Mary smiled at him, reassurance and warmth emanating. Their connection stronger, resilient against past trauma and lingering fear. James began to sketch, capturing memories, feelings, nature, and emotions. Art as therapy, reflection, and grounding methodically. The lake mirrored sky, trees, and life surrounding them, a perfect reflection of emotional clarity regained finally. He shared sketches with Mary, laughter and appreciation filling the cabin, moments of connection healing past wounds profoundly. They spent days exploring, reflecting, speaking, and enjoying nature, strengthening love, resilience, and emotional stability progressively and steadily. James remembered Silent Hill occasionally, acknowledging lessons, guilt, and trauma, but no longer controlled by fear or obsession. Mary supported him, grounded him, reminding him to live in the present, cherishing life and love continuously. The cabin became a sanctuary, a symbol of survival, hope, and life after experiencing unfathomable horrors repeatedly. James realized healing is gradual, requiring patience, acceptance, and the courage to confront and process internal darkness. They planted a small garden, nurturing life, symbolizing growth, recovery, and the gradual return of balance and peace. James sketched the garden, capturing sunlight, soil, growth, and life, reinforcing mindfulness, connection, and hope, visually effectively. Mary tended plants alongside him, moments of shared care creating deeper bonds, understanding, and emotional intimacy strengthened naturally. The nights were peaceful, filled with conversation, quiet reflection, and understanding that life's ordinary moments are deeply precious. James reflected on humanity, grief, love, and the mind's power to create and destroy simultaneously. Fully comprehending, they celebrated small victories, healthy meals, laughter, warmth, shared stories, progress toward emotional recovery, and balanced life gradually. James recognized Silent Hill as a chapter, not a prison, a lesson in love, grief, and resilience. James woke early, sunlight filtering through the trees, warmth filling the cabin and their peaceful hearts. Mary brewed coffee, aroma filling the room, the simple routine grounding them after weeks of torment repeatedly. They sat together quietly, sipping slowly, enjoying morning calm, a stark contrast to Silent Hill's chaos. James reflected on their journey, realizing fear's power diminishes when love, trust, and presence guide recovery consistently. Birdsong outside reminded them of life's continuity, nature's resilience mirroring their emotional healing and regained stability perfectly. Mary suggested a walk in the nearby forest, reconnecting with the world and escaping lingering shadows consciously. They walked hand in hand, moss underfoot, leaves rustling, wind cool, a gentle reminder of freedom regained. James paused, taking in the forest's serenity, inhaling deeply, feeling alive, safe, and free from nightmares entirely. They came upon a small creek, water clear, flowing, sunlight sparkling, reflecting hope and life moving forward naturally. James knelt, dipping fingers into water, feeling its coolness, grounding himself, embracing the present moment fully consciously. Mary laughed softly as a bird landed nearby, curiosity sparkling, reminding James that life holds small delights endlessly. They continued along the trail, discovering wildflowers, small animals, and traces of past hikers, life continuing vibrantly. James sketched the scene, capturing water, trees, and sunlight, translating peace, freedom, and emotional restoration into art effectively. Mary watched him work, admiration and love reflecting in her eyes, deepening the bond formed through shared struggles. They found a wooden bench, sitting together, sharing memories, plans, and dreams for the future, rebuilding life thoughtfully. James spoke of forgiveness, for himself and for Mary, releasing the lingering guilt that haunted his mind constantly. Mary encouraged honesty, reminding him that love thrives when honesty, trust, and shared vulnerability guide every decision continuously. They decided to explore a nearby town, curious about people, shops, and reconnecting with the world they had missed. The streets were quiet but welcoming, signs of community, life, and daily routines comforting James and Mary immensely. James noticed children playing, adults chatting, the scent of bread baking, all normalcy, healing wounds left by horror completely. They visited a small bookstore, browsing shelves, enjoying the smell of paper, discovering books to read and share together. James picked a sketching manual, Mary selected a novel, both excited by possibilities of knowledge, learning, and leisure calmly. They walked to a cafe, sitting outside, sipping tea, watching people pass, absorbing ordinary life's healing rhythm completely. James reflected on Silent Hill, realizing it was a mirror of obsession, fear, and guilt, not reality entirely. Mary reassured him that trauma's power diminishes when confronted, understood, and integrated into a healthier emotional framework wisely. They returned to the cabin, carrying books, small groceries, and a renewed sense of independence, stability, and hopefully. James organized supplies, feeling satisfaction in preparation, routine, and creating a tangible sense of security and control consciously. Mary prepared a simple lunch, enjoying the act of nurturing, sharing, and creating comfort within their shared environment peacefully. After eating, James sketched the cabin's interior, capturing sunlight, warmth, and the presence of love surrounding them continuously. Mary suggested journaling, reflecting on experiences, lessons learned, emotions processed, and progress made. Reinforcing healing and self-awareness actively, James wrote about Silent Hill, hallucinations, and guilt, detailing encounters, lessons, and insights for clarity and understanding completely. Mary added reflections on her observations, supporting James, validating feelings, and sharing perspectives, strengthening communication and connection continuously. They spent the afternoon reading, sketching, and planning. Moments of peace and productivity, reinforcing life's ordinary beauty gently. James thought about the road ahead, challenges of recovery, and the importance of maintaining love, focus, and presence deliberately. Mary reminded him to rest, breathe, and trust the gradual process, emphasizing patience as a core component of healing. As evening approached, they walked to the lake, observing reflections, calm water, birds returning, and nature's consistent rhythm soothing minds. James dipped toes in water, enjoying coolness, grounding himself, releasing tension, connecting fully with the present, leaving fear behind. Mary joined him, laughter and conversation light, reinforcing joy, comfort, and shared experiences as healing tools naturally and gently. They collected firewood for the evening, simple tasks creating connection, purpose, and routine. After weeks of chaos and uncertainty, the fire was lit, warmth spreading, glow illuminating faces, a symbol of resilience, love, and life reclaimed completely. James reflected on personal growth, acknowledging trauma, facing hallucinations, learning lessons, and reclaiming control over perception and emotions. Mary observed him silently, understanding, proud of progress, aware that love's strength can overcome trauma when nurtured continually. They prepared dinner, simple, nourishing, shared laughter, and conversation, reinforcing normalcy, stability, and the joy of life together, consistently. Night fell, stars bright, fire crackling, wind soft, a reminder that peace can follow chaos when embraced consciously. James journaled again, detailing thoughts, emotions, and progress, emphasizing gratitude, reflection, and the importance of mindful living steadily. Mary suggested future activities, hiking, sketching trips, local festivals, reinforcing connection, engagement, and a return to ordinary experiences intentionally. They discussed forgiveness for past mistakes, embracing lessons, and committing to nurturing love, trust, and presence daily, carefully. James reflected on human resilience, the mind's power, and the importance of confronting inner fears with courage and honesty. They went to sleep early, safe, warm, together, minds calmer, hearts lighter, embracing rest as essential recovery fully. The night passed quietly, no dreams of monsters, Silent Hill, or guilt, subconscious finally resting in peace entirely. Morning brought sunlight, wind, birdsong, and the comforting sound of nature, reinforcing continuity, stability, and life's ongoing rhythm naturally. James and Mary walked to the lake, planning the day's activities, reflecting on lessons, and embracing simplicity wholeheartedly. James sketched landscapes, Mary painted water reflections, their art capturing serenity, presence, and emotional healing achieved through shared experiences. They explored surrounding woods, observing wildlife, seasonal changes, and the passage of time, further grounding in reality and nature fully. James reflected on how trauma reshapes perception, understanding the importance of mindfulness, love, and grounding as recovery tools consciously. Mary encouraged him, emphasizing patience, kindness, and celebration of small victories, recognizing emotional restoration as a continuous journey always. They returned to cabin, prepared tea, sitting by the fire, appreciating comfort, warmth, love, and life's ordinary pleasures deeply. James felt gratitude for survival, for Mary's love, and for the lessons Silent Hill taught through horror and fear. James walked through the foggy streets, haunted by visions of Mary's face in every shadow. The ash-covered buildings seemed to groan under the weight of the town's eerie, unnatural silence. A cold wind swept past, carrying distant whispers that sounded like echoes of forgotten memories. He entered a crumbling alleyway, feeling a sense of dread tighten in his chest. Rusty signs swung on broken hinges, creaking like the moans of invisible, restless spirits. In the corner, he glimpsed a figure resembling Mary, but her eyes glowed an unnatural red. Every step he took felt heavier, as if the town itself resisted his desperate presence. He followed her silhouette into a derelict building, the air thick with dust and despair. Broken furniture and shattered glass reflected the dim light, creating shifting shadows that disoriented him. A sudden scream pierced the silence, making James flinch and stumble over debris on the floor. He reached for his flashlight, but it flickered violently, barely illuminating the narrow passage ahead. A wall of darkness seemed to close in, whispering secrets only his mind could comprehend. He felt unseen hands brush against him, though no one was there to be found. Memories of Mary's laughter mixed with terror, creating a dissonant soundtrack in his mind. Every painting, every object, seemed to distort, hinting at the horrors lurking beneath reality. James pressed forward, driven by obsession, his heart pounding with fear and desperate hope. He heard footsteps echoing above him, yet saw no one when he lifted his eyes. The temperature dropped suddenly, frost forming on broken windows and chilling him to the bone. A mirror reflected not his own face, but Mary's twisted, anguished expression staring back. He reached out to touch it, but the surface rippled, swallowing his reflection completely. From the shadows, Pyramid Head emerged, its presence suffocating and impossibly silent, yet menacing. James's breath caught in his throat, his mind scrambling to rationalize the monstrous figure. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet fascination routed him to the splintered wooden floorboards. He remembered Laura's words, fragments of truth intertwined with lies, guiding him toward salvation. Mary's voice echoed in his ears, pleading, begging, accusing him of past failures and sins. The floor beneath him creaked and shifted, revealing a hidden stairwell descending into darkness. He descended cautiously, each step threatening to collapse under the weight of his fear. The stairwell opened into a room filled with hundreds of Mary's portraits, each one bleeding. Her painted eyes followed him, accusing and silent, yet brimming with unspeakable emotion. A single candle burned in the center, casting long shadows that writhed like living creatures. James approached the candle, noticing an envelope placed carefully beside its flickering flame. He opened it, revealing photographs, letters, and notes detailing every encounter, every imagined betrayal. The walls seemed to pulse with the energy of his guilt and Mary's lingering presence. A faint scratching came from the ceiling, like claws tracing patterns only he could see. Suddenly, Maria appeared again, identical to Mary, and whispered riddles that twisted his mind. James struggled to differentiate memory from illusion, each step deeper, eroding his grasp on reality. The floorboards shifted, revealing a trapdoor leading to Brookhaven's nightmarish hospital corridors below. He descended, flashlight trembling, revealing walls smeared with blood and messages written in desperation. Nurses with distorted faces lunged from the darkness, their screeches echoing through endless hallways. James ducked and dodged, barely escaping, heart racing, but determined to find Mary's truth. The corridors twisted endlessly, doors opening to impossible rooms filled with memories and hallucinations. He encountered Eddie again, alive yet monstrous, eyes empty, body trembling under Pyramid Head's looming shadow. James realized that confronting his guilt required facing the horrors he had tried to forget. Every scream, every shadow, every hallucination mirrored his past, each mistake magnified and twisted. He reached a room where Mary's moth-like figure floated, wings bathed in an eerie light. James approached cautiously, words failing him, heart torn between love and overwhelming fear. The figure transformed, her face softening into Mary's, yet eyes held infinite sorrow and warning. He recalled the mercy killing, the final act of love twisted into tragedy by obsession. Mary's voice echoed, soft and piercing, guiding him toward understanding and acceptance of inevitable loss. James knelt, tears mixing with sweat, confronting every choice, every regret, every unresolved feeling. Pyramid Head lurked silently behind, a manifestation of judgment, yet unable to prevent redemption. The corridors shifted one last time, revealing an exit into foggy, ash-laden Silent Hill streets. James stepped out, lungs filling with cold, eerie air, realizing the town's twisted grip loosened. He looked toward the horizon, vision blurred by tears, yet hope flickered amid darkness. Laura appeared once more, whispering that imagination and reality now intertwined, guiding him toward closure. Mary's presence lingered, not threatening, but gentle, as if forgiving and allowing him release. James walked forward, each step lighter, shedding layers of guilt that had bound his soul. The ash fell softly around him, the town's nightmarish visage fading into twilight and silence. He approached his car, seat warm from imagined memories, gripping the wheel with hesitant relief. Driving away, Silent Hill shrank behind him, its foggy streets swallowed by mist and time. His mind felt clearer, yet the weight of love, loss, and memory lingered persistently. James vowed to honor Mary's memory, embracing life despite the shadows that haunted his heart. The road stretched before him, uncertain yet promising, a path to healing and understanding finally. As dawn broke, The sun's light touched his face, dissolving remnants of lingering nightmares. He glanced in the rearview mirror, catching a fleeting image of Mary's smile, before fading. James exhaled deeply, finally releasing years of torment, grief, and obsession with impossible absolution. The journey forward was daunting, but clarity, love, and forgiveness now guided his faltering steps. Silent Hill receded, transformed into myth and memory, a lesson etched into his enduring psyche. His story, though filled with horror and sorrow, reached a point of delicate, bittersweet closure. James continued driving, carrying Mary's essence in his heart, embracing a world both fragile and vast. James drove further from Silent Hill, fog thinning slowly, yet his thoughts remained entangled with memories. The winding roads stretched endlessly, lined with trees, casting shadows reminiscent of forgotten, lingering fears. He recalled Mary's smile, tender yet haunting, echoing in his mind like a distant, fragile melody. Each mile brought clarity, but echoes of nightmare and hallucination lingered, entwined with his guilty conscience. The radio crackled, static-filled voices whispering fragments of his past, fueling unease despite the sunlight. He passed a riverbank, water glinting silver, reflecting moments of love and sorrow intertwined seamlessly. James's hands tightened around the steering wheel, knuckles white from tension, yet determination steadied his resolve. Memories of Laura, Maria, and Angela flickered vividly, reminding him of blurred lines between reality. He glanced at roadside ruins, the remnants of once familiar places twisted by time and haunting visions. A sudden gust swept leaves across the road, resembling tiny specters, dancing to an unseen rhythm. He stopped briefly at a desolate bridge, staring at water, pondering life, death, and choice. The reflection of sky and trees in the water seemed to merge with shadowed memories. James felt a sudden pang of regret, questioning every decision that led him into obsession. Yet he acknowledged the mercy and love hidden beneath pain, shaping his perception of truth. His phone rang briefly, silent voicemail icon blinking, messages left by concerned friends and family ignored. Driving onward, he imagined conversations with Mary, revisiting their first meeting, tender moments now forever fleeting. He recalled the letter that brought him back, triggering the chain of terror and reflection. Every curve in the road mirrored twists in his mind, pathways of guilt and revelation intertwining. The scent of pine and damp earth surrounded him, grounding him in reality, despite lingering phantoms. He approached a small town, buildings familiar yet foreign, shadows stretching unnaturally across cracked streets. Passing by a shuttered store, he imagined Mary's laughter echoing softly, teasingly, haunting yet comforting. James paused, reflecting on choices that defined him, realizing acceptance was his only path forward. He stepped out briefly, feeling sun and breeze on his face, grounding himself in present. Memories of Pyramid Head and nightmarish figures surfaced, but fear now mingled with understanding and strength. A raven flew overhead, black silhouette against pale sky, symbolizing mortality and transformation in his mind. He continued walking to a nearby hill, overlooking the landscape where shadows and light intertwined seamlessly. The wind carried distant sounds, faint echoes of Mary calling, urging him toward emotional resolution. James closed his eyes, inhaling deeply, embracing sorrow, forgiveness, and the clarity that followed trauma. He felt the town of Silent Hill dissolve in memory, its horrors replaced by reflection and acceptance. Returning to his car, he drove past fields and forests, nature reclaiming spaces of past nightmares. He thought of the countless lives affected by love, loss, obsession, and decisions shaped by grief. Sunlight glimmered through clouds, illuminating paths forward, revealing that hope could coexist with remembrance and pain. James slowed the car, reflecting on mortality, connection, and the delicate balance between memory and reality. He reached a clearing, where wildflowers bloomed, signaling renewal and life despite shadows cast by loss. Every petal, every rustling leaf, whispered reminders that life persists beyond sorrow and haunting memories. He felt Mary's presence, softly fading, yet warmth remained, guiding him toward reconciliation with his conscience. James realized the journey of the heart was eternal, shaped by love, guilt, and fleeting time. He paused by a small stream, water flowing gently, cleansing remnants of fear and obsessive longing. The path ahead seemed open, inviting him to embrace life beyond nightmares, shadowed memories, and regret. He glanced in the rearview mirror once, catching a fleeting vision of Silent Hill's fogged streets. It vanished instantly, leaving him with only lessons learned and the echo of past experiences. The sun rose higher, illuminating roads and valleys, symbolizing hope, clarity, and the promise of healing. James continued driving, each mile a step toward emotional recovery, forgiveness, and acceptance of mortality. Thoughts of Mary remained tender and bittersweet, entwined with lessons about love, loss, and human fragility. He passed a roadside chapel, its doors closed, yet symbolizing reflection, hope, and spiritual reconciliation. Every shadow now held meaning rather than fear, guiding him through memories, toward insight and resolution. James reflected on choices, consequences, and mercy, understanding that closure comes through acceptance, not control. The wind carried scents of earth, pine, and water, mingling with the past's lingering whispers. He slowed near a mountain pass, overlooking valleys bathed in morning light, serenity replacing terror slowly. Time seemed to stretch, allowing reflection, forgiveness, and the integration of memory with the present moment. James's journey felt cyclical, yet forward-moving, shaped by encounters, losses, and love's persistent imprint. He felt a sense of liberation, leaving obsession behind while carrying lessons in his heart permanently. Every turn in the road mirrored inner transformation, each mile symbolic of healing and emotional growth. James approached the outskirts of a town, life appearing normal, mundane, yet peaceful and reassuring finally. He parked briefly, taking in surroundings, breathing deeply, and feeling the release of long-held tension. The distant mountains glowed with sunrise, their peaks symbolic of challenges faced and conquered through reflection. Memories of Brookhaven, Pyramid Head, and Mary's moth-like figure merged into a narrative of understanding. James walked a short distance, touching flowers and trees, grounding himself in reality, shedding lingering fears. He realized love and loss coexist, shaping identity, guiding choices, and forging resilience in human hearts. The road ahead stretched invitingly, unknown yet promising, mirroring life beyond nightmares and haunting memories. James resumed driving, each mile reinforcing liberation, hope, and acceptance that pain and love interweave eternally. He glanced in the rearview mirror, Silent Hill entirely gone, replaced by roads, nature, and calm. Every breath, every heartbeat signaled survival, growth, and the possibility of joy, despite lingering grief. James finally smiled, fragile but genuine, understanding that healing comes gradually, through reflection and compassionate memory. He drove onward, carrying Mary's memory gently, ready to embrace life, uncertainty, and human imperfection fully. James navigated winding mountain roads, feeling the morning breeze as memories and hope intertwined in his mind. Sunlight danced through trees, casting fleeting shadows that reminded him of past fears and lessons learned. He remembered Laura's innocent gaze, Maria's deception, and Angela's fleeting presence, shaping his fractured understanding of reality. The silence of the mountains contrasted sharply with Silent Hill's chaos, offering him rare, precious peace today. Birds chirped melodiously overhead, their songs soothing his restless thoughts and bridging distance between past and present. Each mile carried reflections of guilt, sorrow, and love, entwined with glimpses of redemption and clarity. James's hands tightened briefly on the wheel, then relaxed, as acceptance slowly replaced obsessive longing and regret. He passed abandoned cabins, overgrown paths, reminders of human transience, and the impermanence of fear-driven obsessions. The smell of pine and earth grounded him, while memories of Mary lingered as gentle, bittersweet echoes. A small deer darted across the road, symbolizing life's unpredictability and fragile beauty beyond his tormenting visions. James slowed at a riverside viewpoint, water shimmering, reflecting sunlight, past memories, and hopes for emotional restoration. He reflected on Mary's illness, cult involvement, and their final moments. Processing grief with careful, tender mindfulness, thoughts of Pyramid Head's terror faded, replaced by understanding that nightmares only shaped lessons about courage and loss. Passing through foggy valleys, clarity emerged, showing him that love and pain are inseparable in human experience. He noted the subtle healing of nature, reclaiming spaces once haunted by obsession, darkness, and violence. James recalled his final encounter with Mary, recognizing the mercy in letting go and choosing life forward. He walked briefly along a quiet trail, touching leaves, feeling earth, reconnecting with reality and sensory grounding. The distant mountains glowed gold, signaling both end and beginning, closure and continuation of life's complex journey. Memories of Brookhaven, the hospital, and nightmarish visions merged, now reframed as lessons rather than lingering fears. James paused at a bend overlooking the valley, sunlight illuminating shadows, blending past trauma into understanding. He exhaled deeply, releasing tension, guilt, and obsessive longing, embracing a newfound sense of inner freedom. The road curved gracefully, inviting him to continue forward, carrying both memory and the possibility of hope. He reflected on human imperfection, mortality, and resilience, realizing acceptance comes with humility, time, and reflection. Every mile felt like a meditation, each turn reinforcing lessons of love, loss, and emotional balance gained. James glimpsed distant towns, ordinary life moving calmly, reminding him of continuity beyond personal suffering and obsession. He recalled conversations with his therapist, understanding that closure comes not from denial but reflection and integration. Passing a wildflower field, he paused, appreciating delicate beauty, fleeting life, and the permanence of memory. The sky changed colors subtly, sunrise giving way to mid-morning light, signaling progress and emotional clarity achieved. James felt Mary's presence not as torment but as gentle guidance, memory intertwined with acceptance of loss. He slowed near a wooden bridge, water flowing beneath, symbolizing the passage of time and human endurance. Thoughts of Laura, Maria, and Angela arose briefly, now understood as manifestations of grief, love, and fear. The forest canopy opened, revealing distant mountains bathed in sunlight, hinting at journeys yet to come peacefully. James's heart lightened, past horrors tempered by understanding, acceptance, and the slow but steady healing of spirit. Driving onward, he embraced the delicate balance of memory, reality, and hope, acknowledging life's fragility gracefully. He remembered choices made in mercy, love, and fear, each shaping his present perspective with clarity. Passing small towns and crossroads, he felt connection to human stories, struggles, and resilience beyond Silent Hill. A gentle wind stirred leaves around his car, signaling liberation from obsession, acceptance of impermanence, and reflection. James reflected on mortality, love, grief, and the courage required to navigate human imperfection and complexity. He paused at a vista overlooking valleys, forests, and rivers, taking time to breathe and appreciate life. The sun shimmered on distant peaks, mirroring hope, lessons learned, and emotional balance achieved through reflection. He noticed every shadow and light interplay, realizing that darkness and light coexist in memory and present moments. Passing a small chapel, he felt reverence, peace, and recognition of spirituality beyond fear and guilt lingering. James stopped briefly, observing nature reclaiming abandoned structures, symbolizing renewal, impermanence, and healing in both landscape and mind. Memories of suffering, guilt, and terror softened, replaced with understanding, acceptance, and the warmth of human resilience. He reflected on Mary's love, their shared past, and the mercy found in letting go with grace. Driving further, the road stretched invitingly, offering freedom, hope, and continuity beyond memories and haunting visions experienced. He felt a gentle shift inside, sorrow mingling with gratitude, pain interwoven with insights about life's impermanence. Passing a quiet river, sunlight dancing on water, he sensed the interconnection of memory, grief, and growth. James exhaled fully, releasing lingering fear, embracing lessons learned, and feeling readiness to move forward peacefully. He recalled past nightmares, seeing them as symbolic guides rather than literal threats, reframing trauma into reflection. The mountains extended endlessly, road winding through them, symbolizing life's unpredictable journey with hope, learning, and acceptance. James slowed near a grassy hill, observing wildflowers, bees, and sunlight, connecting deeply with nature's gentle rhythm. Every step forward on the road symbolized progress, closure, and emotional clarity gradually achieved through self-compassion. He drove onward, letting memory, grief, and love coexist peacefully, guiding choices without obsession or despair. The landscape opened, distant towns appearing serene, reinforcing the possibility of normalcy, peace, and emotional resilience regained. James felt a quiet joy, fragile but genuine, understanding life continues beyond fear, obsession, and unresolved grief. He glanced at the horizon, sunlight illuminating possibilities, signifying that forward movement honors memory while embracing life. The road stretched invitingly, a symbol of new beginnings, hope, and the gradual integration of past experiences. James reflected on mortality, love, mercy, and human imperfection, accepting lessons from trauma without clinging to fear. Driving further, he felt liberation from Silent Hill's shadow, carrying only wisdom, compassion, and memory gently in heart. He slowed briefly to observe a serene lake, reflecting sunlight, clouds, and the clarity of mental peace. Each mile reinforced emotional growth, acceptance, and understanding that love and loss persist, yet life continues gracefully. James allowed moments of pause, reflection, and gratitude, embracing the fullness of human experience beyond fear and obsession. He drove past meadows, rivers, and forests, feeling interconnected with life, nature, and memory without entrapment. The sun climbed higher, illuminating valleys, towns, and roads, symbolizing clarity, healing, and the promise of renewal. James exhaled with relief, sensing closure, balance, and acceptance for choices made and memories retained tenderly. He passed a roadside bench, pausing to watch birds, clouds, and the flowing river, embracing serenity fully. Driving onward, every mile symbolized progress, integration, and emotional clarity achieved through reflection, patience, and acceptance gained. James continued driving along the winding mountain road, sunlight filtering through the trees, warming his thoughtful mind. He recalled Mary's smile, their shared laughter, and fleeting moments of happiness during happier, simpler days together. The wind whispered softly through the pines, carrying scents of earth and freedom, grounding his wandering thoughts. Passing abandoned cabins, he imagined the lives once lived there, ghosts of memory mingling with present reality. He reflected on Laura's innocence, Angela's fleeting presence, and Maria's deception, recognizing lessons learned from these encounters. The distant peaks glowed golden under the morning sun, signaling hope, clarity, and emotional restoration gradually unfolding. James slowed near a serene river, watching sunlight dance on ripples, reflecting both memory and newfound understanding. The gentle sound of water soothed his mind, easing lingering tension from nightmares and obsessive fears past. He felt gratitude for survival, resilience, and the slow healing process that life grants those willing. Passing a small wooden bridge, he noted its weathered planks, symbolizing passage, transitions, and impermanence of human struggles. Birds flew overhead, swooping gracefully, reminding him that freedom and beauty exist, even beyond suffering and grief. James exhaled deeply, releasing residual guilt, tension, and obsessive thoughts that haunted him since Mary's tragic death. The winding road led through dense forest, shadows shifting, sunlight peeking through branches, blending past and present. He remembered Brookhaven Hospital, Pyramid Head's terror, and the moth-like Mary, reframing nightmares as lessons, not threats. Driving further, he passed wildflower fields, appreciating delicate colors, fleeting life, and fragile beauty of natural cycles. Each mile reinforced understanding that grief, love, and memory coexist, shaping perspectives while allowing hope and healing. James glanced at distant towns, noting ordinary life moving calmly, reminding him of continuity beyond Silent Hill's chaos. He reflected on therapeutic advice. Understanding closure comes from integration, reflection, and mindful acceptance, not denial or avoidance. Passing under a canopy of trees, he felt connected to nature, memory, and the rhythm of life. Sunlight shimmered on river surfaces, merging with memory, symbolizing clarity, reflection, and emotional balance gently restored within him. He remembered choices of mercy, love, and courage, each shaping present understanding and inner peace achieved gradually. Passing a grassy hillside, he observed deer grazing peacefully, nature's rhythm reminding him of life's fragile beauty. James paused briefly, watching clouds drift over distant mountains, connecting tranquility, reflection, and awareness of impermanence deeply. The road curved gracefully, inviting forward motion, symbolizing healing, acceptance, and the embrace of new beginnings patiently. He remembered Mary's illness and cult involvement, reframing painful memories as understanding rather than lingering obsessive fear. Driving onward, sunlight illuminated valleys and rivers, reflecting hope, wisdom, and the resilience gained through past suffering. James recalled Laura, Maria, and Angela, recognizing them as manifestations of memory, grief, and love, intertwined intricately. He slowed near a quiet meadow, touching grass, feeling earth, reconnecting physically and emotionally with present reality fully. Passing abandoned farmhouses, he contemplated human impermanence, mortality, and the slow integration of life's lessons into awareness. The distant mountains gleamed in golden light, symbolizing hope, closure, and emotional equilibrium achieved through reflection and courage. James inhaled deeply, allowing memories of Mary to coexist with understanding, acceptance, and the possibility of happiness. He drove past sparkling lakes, reflecting sky and sun, symbolizing clarity, healing, and emotional growth over lingering trauma. Passing through a quiet forest, he felt connected to memory, nature, and life, free from obsession and fear. The sun rose higher, illuminating valleys and hills, symbolizing continued progress, healing, and the strength found in reflection. James reflected on mortality, love, grief, and mercy, recognizing that acceptance and forgiveness are crucial for inner peace. He glanced at a distant river bend, sunlight glimmering, understanding that life flows continuously, carrying memory and hope. Passing through a small village, he observed peaceful routines, reminding him that human life endures beyond personal grief. James stopped briefly to watch a flock of birds soar, feeling freedom, clarity, and emotional liberation deeply. He exhaled slowly, integrating lessons of love, loss, and human imperfection, appreciating life's delicate balance fully. Driving onward, each mile symbolized progress, closure, and acceptance, blending memory with understanding and newfound resilience gracefully. Passing wildflower-covered hillsides, he paused, observing bees and sunlight, grounding himself in nature's beauty and continuity. He recalled the hospital, Brookhaven, and past terrors, reframing them as opportunities for reflection and personal growth. The road wound through forests and valleys, sunlight filtering through, symbolizing hope, clarity, and emotional restoration gradually. James reflected on choices made in mercy, love, and courage, realizing each shaped present understanding and peace. He slowed near a quiet river, watching reflections ripple, connecting deeply with memory, nature, and emotional reconciliation. Passing abandoned railways, he contemplated human effort, impermanence, and resilience, appreciating life's continuity despite hardship and loss. James observed distant mountains, clouds drifting slowly, integrating past experiences with hope, growth, and emotional clarity achieved fully. The wind rustled leaves gently, carrying scents of earth and pine, grounding thoughts and bringing mindfulness and presence. He glanced at sunlight glinting off distant peaks, reflecting possibilities, closure, and the steady healing of spirit gained. James exhaled fully, releasing lingering fear, guilt, and obsession, embracing lessons learned and emotional liberation gradually achieved. He drove further, noticing flowing rivers, meadows, and forests, connecting memory, nature, and resilience without attachment to past pain. Passing under tall trees, he felt liberation from Silent Hill's shadow, carrying wisdom, love, and memory gently within. Sunlight illuminated valleys and towns below, symbolizing clarity, hope, and the integration of past experiences into understanding. James slowed near a grassy hilltop, observing clouds, birds, and flowing rivers, appreciating life's continuity and fragile beauty. He recalled Mary's love, final moments, and mercy choices, reframing grief into understanding, reflection, and inner peace. The road stretched onward invitingly, a symbol of new beginnings, hope, and emotional restoration achieved through mindful reflection. James inhaled deeply, allowing past memories to coexist with acceptance, hope, and connection to present and future life. Passing through serene valleys, he felt gratitude, resilience, and liberation from obsession, carrying only lessons learned and love. He slowed briefly at a riverside lookout, watching water and sunlight, reflecting on choices, growth, and healing achieved. Driving onward, each mile reinforced acceptance, closure, and emotional clarity, integrating memory, grief, and hope in balance. James felt the cold wind brush his face as he approached the Silent Hill streets. Fog curled around the buildings, making familiar structures appear twisted and foreboding to him. Memories of Mary haunted his mind, filling him with fear and a sense of urgent dread. The letter's words echoed again. "Come back, James, to find what was always yours here." Every step James took seemed heavier as he navigated debris-strewn roads in the deserted town. Shattered glass crunched beneath his shoes, reminding him how abandoned and unsafe the place remained. He turned a corner and saw a shadow moving unnaturally in the thickening gray fog. It resembled Mary, yet the figure flickered in and out like an elusive ghost. James called out, his voice trembling, hoping she would respond and reveal her true form. The wind carried strange whispers, mixing with the smell of smoke and decaying wood. Angela appeared suddenly, her eyes wide with fear, pointing towards a darkened alleyway ahead. James felt unease grow as the environment shifted, reality blending into nightmarish hallucinations again. The ground beneath him seemed to pulsate, as if the town itself were alive and watching. He followed Angela cautiously, each step echoing loudly through the foggy, eerie Silent Hill streets. A low growl came from nearby, making James clutch his chest and hold his breath tightly. Pyramid Head emerged slowly, dragging its massive knife, sending a cold shiver down James's spine. Angela screamed, backing away, But James stood frozen, his eyes locked on the monstrous figure. Memories of past encounters and unsolved horrors rushed into his mind, blurring present reality sharply. He forced himself to move, stepping toward the creature with a mix of fear and determination. A sudden shadow leaped across the alley, forcing James to dodge and stumble into broken debris. Laura appeared beside him, whispering that this town feeds on fear and lost human will. James nodded, trying to steady his breathing, realizing he must confront both real and imagined threats. The building's walls seemed to twist as he approached, corridors stretching unnaturally like warped dreams. Every corner held shadows resembling loved ones, yet distorted and terrifying beyond comprehension now. He reached a room filled with paintings of Mary, each more grotesque than the last shown. In the center, a doll resembling her smiled menacingly, moving slightly as if alive somehow. James recoiled, but curiosity pushed him closer, needing answers to end his endless torment fully. The room shifted suddenly, doors disappearing, leaving only walls pulsating with ominous red light around. Maria's voice echoed, seductive yet terrifying, urging him to let go of reality entirely here. James struggled internally, holding to memory of who Mary truly was, not illusions around him. The air grew thick and oppressive, his lungs burning as whispers surrounded him from every corner. Suddenly, Pyramid Head appeared behind the paintings, stabbing through the images as though breaking illusions. Laura grabbed his arm, urging him to escape, while the room transformed violently into darkness completely. He ran blindly through endless hallways, each turn leading deeper into a nightmare he could not escape. The floor beneath him shifted into a staircase, descending into pitch-black emptiness, with every step trembling. James felt cold hands brush his shoulders, whispering truths about death, guilt, and his obsession's cost. He screamed, but no sound escaped. The air itself seemed to swallow his voice entirely now. At the bottom, he found a room containing Brookhaven Hospital, eerily intact yet decayed from neglect. Mary's image flickered across beds, tubes, and shattered windows, showing her in pain yet ethereal. James approached slowly, noticing an audio tape lying on a bedside table, labeled with her name. He pressed play, hearing her voice recount suffering, cult rituals, and poisons that ultimately consumed her. The hospital walls shook violently as monstrous nurses appeared, moving in jerky, unnatural motions threatening. Maria appeared wounded, collapsing to the ground, her eyes pleading for help that James could not give. A monstrous moth-like version of Mary emerged from shadows, wings spread wide, obscuring all remaining light. James felt terror, yet also sorrow, realizing he could never save her from this horrifying transformation. Laura appeared beside him again, reminding him that his mind created illusions to cope with trauma deeply. The moth Mary lunged, and James shielded Maria, who vanished in a flash of sickly green light. James woke in a hospital room, realizing the events were intertwined with delusions and obsession painfully. Nicola Alexis, his therapist, explained Mary had died long ago, and his visits were manifestations of grief. The hospital transformed subtly back into Brookhaven, reinforcing his understanding that much had been imagined now. James walked the corridors, noticing that Maria, Angela, and Laura were aspects of Mary's personality combined. Outside, the fog lifted slightly, showing the deserted streets, but with haunting remnants of memory present. He climbed to the Lakeview Hotel roof, feeling wind bite at his skin, recalling final flashbacks vividly. Mary appeared before him, mortal and frail, memories of the cult and mercy killing rushing back sharply. James apologized, cradling her image as the moth-like illusion melted away, leaving peace and sorrow intertwined. He placed Mary in his car, intending a final escape from the haunting of Silent Hill entirely. Driving toward the pier, he felt the weight of years and guilt, preparing for the ultimate decision. Suddenly, he woke again at their first encounter, realizing he could alter his past choices finally. He chose not to return her to Silent Hill, driving away together, leaving darkness and torment behind. James and Mary drove away from Silent Hill, leaving behind fog, ash, and twisted memories entirely. The road stretched ahead, empty and quiet, sunlight cutting through the mist that had lingered constantly. James kept his eyes on the horizon, thinking about choices, grief, and mistakes made long ago. Mary looked at him silently, understanding he carried years of guilt and endless sorrow within. The car's engine hummed steadily as the landscape changed from abandoned town to forested highways gradually. They passed over bridges and streams, nature seeming to reclaim spaces once haunted by unnatural horrors. James remembered encounters with Pyramid Head, monstrous nurses, and visions of Mary's moth-like terrifying form. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, ensuring he wouldn't repeat mistakes that nearly destroyed them both. Mary reached out, placing her hand over his, calming him with the warmth of her presence. The wind carried scents of pine and wet earth, contrasting the decay that plagued Silent Hill previously. He glanced at the rearview mirror, half expecting shadows or apparitions to appear behind them suddenly. Nothing came. Only sunlight and trees filled the view, giving him hope he had long lost. James recalled his hallucinations, the hospital, and the moment he realized his mind had twisted reality. Laura, Angela, and Maria's images were gone, leaving only Mary as the genuine presence by his side. He reflected on the Mercy killing, realizing he had to forgive himself for choices driven by love. As they approached a small town, James noticed shops, pedestrians, and signs of life returning naturally. The town square looked normal, yet traces of Silent Hill's eerie influence lingered faintly in corners. Mary suggested they stop for food, something ordinary, grounding them in reality after months of horror. They entered a small diner, greeted by a waitress, smiling, unaware of the horrors they had faced. James felt a rush of relief, savoring the mundane, appreciating life's simple, unnoticed, daily pleasures again. The waitress brought menus, and Mary ordered coffee, while James scanned the room, observing normalcy with fascination. He tried to speak to Mary about his experiences, but found words inadequate. Thoughts still tangled deeply. Mary squeezed his hand, telling him no explanation was necessary. They had survived and could rebuild trust. Outside, children played, dogs barked, and birds chirped, contrasting the silence and ash of previous days. James realized he could no longer let guilt dictate actions or haunt moments of happiness moving forward. He promised himself to protect Mary, cherish her presence, and leave darkness strictly within memories forever. The diner's bell jingled as a man entered, seemingly ordinary, but James felt a faint sense of caution. He studied the man's movements, noting calmness, normal gestures, and no hint of supernatural threat whatsoever. Mary noticed his tension, quietly telling him to relax, assuring him that paranoia must be left behind. James took a deep breath, letting go of lingering anxiety, focusing instead on the sunlight streaming warmly. They finished breakfast slowly, appreciating flavors, warmth, and conversation without interruption from fear or hallucinations. Now, after paying, James locked eyes with Mary, silently agreeing to continue the journey together, peacefully, with patience. The car ride resumed, roads smooth, trees swaying in wind, leaving Silent Hill's twisted landscape far behind. James began talking about life, hopes, and dreams he had abandoned due to obsession and grief previously. Mary listened intently, nodding, encouraging him to embrace joy without guilt, validating his feelings openly and gently. They drove through valleys and fields, noticing farmers at work and animals grazing in sunlit meadows nearby. James felt connection, grounding, and appreciation for life beyond nightmares, realizing survival included emotional restoration wholly. The days passed in travel, towns grew larger, landscapes shifted, and life's ordinary routines returned slowly but surely. They stopped at a small river, watching fish swim, reflecting on past horrors and current peace silently. James allowed himself laughter, hearing Mary's gentle giggle, marking a long-awaited return to normalcy and comfort. Night fell, but no fog, no ash, no supernatural presence disturbed them, only stars and calm darkness. They camped under trees, fire crackling, cooking simple meals, embracing nature's rhythm without shadows haunting their thoughts. James spoke of Silent Hill, Pyramid Head, and monstrous nurses, recounting events factually, keeping imagination separate firmly. Mary comforted him, acknowledging loss, affirming his grief, yet emphasizing the importance of moving forward positively. He realized coping meant accepting trauma without letting it dominate actions, while still honoring memories appropriately. The following day, roads led to a small coastal town, waves crashing rhythmically against rocks along the shore. They walked along the beach, sand beneath feet, sun low, water sparkling, feeling present and alive entirely. James found shells and stones, small tokens of peace, holding them as reminders of life's fragile beauty. Mary laughed as waves splashed her feet, carefree, reinforcing the stark contrast to Silent Hill's oppressive atmosphere. He watched her, committing her movements, smile, and voice to memory, gratitude replacing lingering fear steadily. Evening approached, and they found a quaint inn to stay overnight, cozy and far from nightmares entirely. James finally allowed himself sleep without dread, nightmares receding, replaced by dreams of ordinary happiness and calm. Morning arrived, sun rising over ocean horizon, signaling a new chapter in life and shared journey. They packed belongings, feeling light, unburdened, leaving memories behind without forgetting, carrying lessons forward carefully and consciously. James realized Silent Hill's influence could remain in mind, but would no longer control daily life actively. They continued driving along coastal roads, listening to waves, feeling freedom. With road ahead open, possibilities vast, Mary pointed to a lighthouse in distance, symbolizing guidance, hope, and light after prolonged darkness and suffering. James nodded, understanding the metaphor, committing to embrace life fully, while honoring love without obsession entirely. The town grew visible below cliffs, people bustling, shops open, music faintly playing, reminding them of normality. They descended, parking near Marketplace, watching life continue, noticing small joys, previously unnoticed, due to fear entirely. James took Mary's hand, walking through streets, savoring sun, sound, and community, healing through presence and experience. They stopped at a bakery, buying bread and fruit, tasting sweetness, reconnecting with mundane pleasures forgotten completely. James felt gratitude, release, and optimism, understanding that surviving horror also meant cherishing peace and simplicity fully. Evening approached. They found a small inn by harbor, settling in, embracing routine, sleep, and warm comfort. James wrote notes in journal, documenting journey, trauma, and healing process, keeping memories factual, not distorted emotionally. Mary smiled, reading beside him, suggesting they continue documenting, preserving truth, while letting go of fear entirely. Next day, they explored town, visited lighthouse, climbed steps, looked out at ocean, finding serenity and hope. James reflected on choices, Silent Hill, and coping with trauma, realizing power lay in acceptance completely. They walked hand in hand back to inn, passing townsfolk, children playing, fishermen returning, life normal, healing evident. James spoke of gratitude, survival, and commitment to Mary, ensuring lessons from horror-guided future actions. Mary hugged him tightly, reinforcing love, connection, and partnership, signaling emotional restoration and mutual understanding clearly. Night fell, stars bright above, lighthouse beaming, sea calm, world ordinary, yet magnificent, marking end of terror. James understood journey was not just escape, but learning, forgiveness, and embracing life despite past trauma fully. He slept peacefully, no hallucinations, nightmares, or shadows intruding, only warmth, love, and the sound of waves. Morning sunlight illuminated room, birds chirping, sea breeze through windows, confirming reality's beauty beyond Silent Hill entirely. They prepared for journey onward, leaving inn, carrying hope, love, and renewed faith in life's ordinary magic. The road stretched ahead, open, clear, possibilities endless, and Silent Hill receded permanently into memory and history. James held Mary's hand, eyes forward, heart light, ready to embrace life's future together without fear entirely. James and Mary drove along the coastal road, sunlight glimmering on the calm, endless ocean waves. They discussed plans for the future, embracing life's ordinary joys, leaving haunting memories behind completely. James reflected on Silent Hill, realizing the town would always remain in his memory cautiously. Mary encouraged him to forgive himself entirely, letting go of guilt, and embracing life with courage. They passed small villages, fishermen unloading their catch, dogs running freely, and children playing cheerfully nearby. The air smelled of salt and pine, calming James's mind after months of nightmares haunting him. He reached over to hold Mary's hand, feeling warmth and reassurance from her gentle presence constantly. They stopped at a cliffside viewpoint, admiring sunlight reflecting off the water, vast and unbroken below. James thought about his hallucinations, Pyramid Head, and monstrous nurses, realizing horror had shaped him, not destroyed him. Mary smiled at him, suggesting they take time to rebuild, enjoy life slowly, and remain patient always. They walked along a narrow path, cliffs on one side, waves crashing against rocks, wind strong yet refreshing. James realized every step forward was symbolic, leaving behind trauma, while creating memories of love and peace. The couple found a small cafe overlooking the sea, ordering fresh bread, coffee, and fruit to eat. They laughed softly, sharing moments of connection, realizing survival included emotional healing as much as physical endurance. James looked at the horizon, imagining a life where fear no longer controlled choices or restricted his actions. Mary encouraged him to paint again, to create art inspired by life rather than memories of horror entirely. They spent the afternoon sketching, laughing, and talking, rediscovering rhythm, patience, and joy in simple moments. James noticed children playing nearby, their laughter infectious, reminding him of innocence and life beyond darkness completely. Mary leaned on his shoulder, whispering reassurance, and he finally felt unburdened by guilt and lingering fear. As evening fell, they returned to their car, watching sunset turn water gold, reflecting hope's permanence clearly. James felt a sense of renewal, realizing life could still hold beauty, love, and happiness despite past trauma. Mary suggested they stay in a nearby inn for the night, enjoying ordinary life without shadows present. They unpacked belongings, placed them in a cozy room, and allowed themselves moments of quiet reflection entirely. James thought of Silent Hill's horrors, and understood memories could teach, not control, shaping wisdom and empathy fully. Mary made tea while he looked out the window, observing stars begin to pierce the evening sky slowly. He realized confronting trauma meant accepting reality, preserving memories, and moving forward with courage and love completely. They shared a quiet meal, savoring flavors, warmth, and conversation, free from supernatural fear or hallucinations now. James recounted dreams of Silent Hill to Mary, speaking factually, separating imagination from reality for healing effectively. Mary held his hand, nodding, affirming understanding, showing patience, and encouraging emotional openness, rebuilding trust steadily. Night deepened, waves crashed rhythmically. Stars reflected in their eyes, signaling peace, replacing months of chaos entirely. They lay in bed, listening to sea wind and distant waves, hearts synchronized and fully present together. James allowed himself sleep without fear, nightmares receding completely, replaced by dreams of ordinary life's simple joys. Morning sunlight streamed in, illuminating the room, casting warm patterns, and signaling new beginnings filled with hope. They packed for departure, leaving the inn, hearts light, carrying gratitude, hope, and newfound appreciation for life. James realized Silent Hill's trauma would remain in memory, but would no longer dictate daily actions consciously. They walked through village streets, greeting townsfolk, noticing normalcy, laughter, and mundane life thriving peacefully around them completely. Mary encouraged James to sketch the village, capturing beauty without darkness, fostering creativity, healing, and presence fully. They visited a small harbor, watching boats float gently, seagulls circling, and water sparkling beneath soft morning sunlight. James felt serenity, embracing simplicity, observing life's rhythms. Understanding healing required patience, connection, and continuous reflection entirely. Mary held his arm, smiling, emphasizing togetherness, trust, and love, reminding him that survival included emotional recovery completely. They wandered through a market, buying fresh fruit, flowers, and bread, reconnecting with the vibrancy of ordinary life. James sketched flowers and market scenes, infusing joy into his art, focusing on creation rather than past darkness entirely. They stopped at a small park, children playing, dogs chasing, parents chatting, laughter filling air, grounding James deeply. Mary suggested they write letters to themselves, recording lessons learned, gratitude, and hopes for a future free of fear. James wrote thoughtfully, reflecting on Silent Hill, survival, love, and the importance of embracing ordinary life wholeheartedly. They returned to their car, ready to continue journey, hearts light, minds clear, and future opened brightly. James thought about painting, traveling, living fully, and connecting with people, leaving old obsessions and nightmares behind entirely. Mary squeezed his hand, reassuring him, showing unconditional support, commitment, and shared determination to live fully together always. They drove toward distant mountains, forests, and rivers, nature vibrant, alive, symbolizing life beyond past darkness completely. James recalled Silent Hill horrors, yet each mile reassured him that fear could no longer dominate thought entirely. Mary suggested they camp near a river, cook food, and enjoy quiet night under stars, reconnecting with nature peacefully. They pitched tent, started fire, prepared simple meal, listening to water, wind, and night sounds harmoniously together. James realized survival included presence, love, and acceptance of past, not obsession over what could not change entirely. Mary encouraged storytelling, sharing memories, laughter, and dreams, reinforcing healing, trust, and emotional connection between them completely. They watched night sky, stars bright, constellations vivid, waves of serenity washing over minds and hearts entirely. James painted small sketches by firelight, each stroke symbolic of survival, healing, and rediscovery of life's beauty fully. Mary shared her thoughts, hopes, and dreams for future, inspiring James to embrace life actively, joyfully, and courageously. Night deepened, fire dwindled, and they lay together, feeling peace, love, and connection beyond Silent Hill's reach entirely. Morning arrived, sunlight reflecting off river, birds singing, breeze soft, signaling continuation of journey, hope renewed entirely. James and Mary packed, ready to leave, hearts synchronized, carrying gratitude, love, and lessons from past, consciously. They walked to car, observing flowers, insects, and trees, finding life vibrant, beautiful, and reassuring in presence completely. James reflected on healing, freedom, and connection. Understanding life's beauty included ordinary moments, peace, and shared love wholly. Mary smiled, squeezing hand, reinforcing partnership, trust, and commitment. Ensuring joy and security remained priorities in journey forward. They drove onward, mountains ahead, sun high, road winding, embracing future with hearts, light and minds free entirely. James glanced at Mary, grateful for presence, survival, love, and lessons. Understanding healing required continuous effort consciously. Mary encouraged laughter, music, and conversation, reminding James that ordinary life offered joy, creativity, and wonder fully. They passed waterfalls, small towns, and scenic viewpoints, each site restoring hope, peace, and perspective on life completely. James felt liberation, realizing Silent Hill trauma would never dictate actions, only inform strength, resilience, and wisdom entirely. Mary suggested documenting journey in journal, capturing moments, growth, and gratitude, reinforcing mindfulness and conscious presence fully. They stopped at small inn by river, resting, sharing meal, conversation, and laughter, healing continuing naturally, steadily, entirely. James reflected on Silent Hill, choices, hallucinations, and survival, appreciating resilience, connection, and ordinary life's extraordinary beauty fully. Night fell, stars bright above, fireflies glowing, water gently moving, and both felt calm, connected, and fully present. They planned next day's journey, mountains, rivers, towns, observing life, nature, and people, appreciating reality after terror entirely. James realized living fully meant embracing ordinary, connecting with others, and leaving trauma to memory, without obsession completely. Mary nodded, holding hand, showing love, patience, and encouragement, reinforcing resilience, trust, and hope in partnership fully. They slept peacefully, no nightmares, no hallucinations, only stars, water sounds, and warm presence of each other entirely. Morning sunlight illuminated surroundings, birds singing, water sparkling, and both felt ready to continue journey with hope entirely. They packed belongings, prepared for travel, carrying gratitude, lessons, and renewed perspective on life, love, and future fully. James reflected on Silent Hill horrors, understanding fear existed only in memory, now a tool for growth entirely. Mary smiled, pointing toward distant mountains, waves, and forests, inviting exploration, joy, and adventure beyond past trauma wholly. They drove, observing landscapes, wildlife, and people, appreciating life's rhythms, beauty, and ordinary moments often overlooked completely. James felt lighthearted, grateful, and motivated, recognizing survival required presence, connection, and emotional resilience continually and consciously. James and Mary reached the mountain overlooked, sunrise bathing valleys below, feeling gratitude for surviving all horrors. They paused, holding hands, watching rivers sparkle, forests sway, and birds soaring freely in morning light. James reflected on Silent Hill's nightmares, realizing lessons learned helped him cherish life fully, leaving fear behind. Mary smiled, squeezing his hand, reinforcing partnership, trust, and joy cultivated through trials and shared experiences. They descended winding roads slowly, breathing fresh air, absorbing ordinary life's beauty, laughter, and simplicity with awe. James thought of painting again, capturing mountains, rivers, and sunlight, transforming trauma into creativity and meaning fully. Mary suggested journaling journey's lessons, recording gratitude, growth, and love, preserving memories without letting darkness dominate entirely. They stopped at a small riverside cafe, sharing breakfast, coffee, laughter, and conversation with warmth surrounding them entirely. James felt freedom, emotional healing, and renewed purpose. Understanding life required presence, love, and acceptance without fear. Mary encouraged connecting with others, embracing life's rhythm, and fostering joy, resilience, and mindfulness through shared experiences fully. They walked along riverbank, stones smooth beneath feet, water rippling, reflecting sunlight, hearts light and spirits lifted. James realized Silent Hill trauma shaped him, but no longer controlled him, leaving lessons, strength, and wisdom entirely. Mary leaned on his shoulder, whispering reassurance, hope, and encouragement, reinforcing healing, love, and trust between them completely. They returned to car, driving onward, mountains and valleys ahead, embracing future, with hearts full and minds clear. James glanced at Mary, feeling profound gratitude, love, and connection, knowing survival included embracing ordinary life fully. Mary pointed toward distant hills, forests, and rivers, inviting exploration, adventure, and joy beyond any past horrors entirely. They drove together, music playing softly, sunlight warming faces, eyes sparkling, carrying hope, resilience, and lessons into tomorrow. James smiled, realizing life could still hold beauty, love, and peace, despite haunting memories and past darkness. Mary held his hand firmly, reminding him they would face life together, resilient, joyful, and fully present entirely. They continued their journey, mountains, rivers, forests unfolding, hearts synchronized, living fully, free from Silent Hill's shadow forever.